Mindless Idiots, Part 2. Too mindless, two idiots. It's a scorcher today.
Yeah, it is. It's been real hot out there. Just like this show.
I'm sweating all over.
It's going to be hot. This show's going to be hot. It's going to make you sweat. It's going to make me sweat. It's going to make you sweat.
Y'all hear that?
I got a sweaty one today.
Yeah, so what's new since the previous episode, episode 1?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that really pertains to this show, music. Me and my band, we picked a name. We're gonna call ourselves a Respirator. So, I don't know, just kind of a cute name we were just all thinking of, just throwing out names, and we all like that one. We'll probably make a debut in Bowling Green.
Man.
But
have you been up to Toledo?
Yeah.
Yeah. I went up there for the first time shortly after our last episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What'd you think?
It was pretty good.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff. Did you go see Lake Erie?
Yeah, I was able to see the lake for a little bit. I was hanging out with a coworker of mine.
Okay.
Who works at the radio station 88.9 Jazzy WCSU FM in Wilberforce, Ohio, a part of Central State University, an 1890 land-grant institution. And I think we were going up for a tech expo.
Okay.
In Detroit. So I also got to see Detroit.
Detroit's cool. Detroit's really cool.
Well, so when's the first show again? What's the date on that?
Well, I'm not going to confirm anything yet. I guess in a future episode, when I get a solid date, I'll have to plug that for our show. And I'll definitely get more details and whatnot. So stay tuned for first Respirator show.
Well, now I just feel like interviewer here, but the Respirators. Now, what is that?
Well, so because we're a new band, we're still trying to figure out what music we want to play. I'm mainly influenced for the band, not that I just listen to indie rock or whatever, but that's kind of my influence going into this project. And I play guitar, and so I'm supposed to sing too, and that's a whole other issue I'll talk about in a bit. But I think the biggest influence musically for how I want the band to go is a band called Hoops, and then a band called Plums, and then I brought the record one of the records for another band that I really love, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.
Right, from down under.
Yep. Australia, and then trying to think what else. Meat Puppets too. Kind of want to go there. Kind of trying to stay away from like metal stuff, even though I really do love metal. But yeah.
Well, how about like band member wise? Like how many of yous? And then what do y'all?
Yeah. So we're 4 people. I play rhythm guitar, although I do have a couple lead lines. And then I'm supposed to sing, and then I've got my buddy Carson that I met at college, and he's on lead guitar, and he's phenomenal. He's a great guitarist. Old friend Dane, who's playing drums. He kind of dropped it for a while, but then he's picking back it up. He picked it back up, and he's sounding great. It's getting better and better every time we practice. And then one of my buddies named Weston, who I met at the climbing gym, and he worked there, and just like talking to him, and I was like, well, I'm looking for a bassist. And he's like, well, I can play bass if that needs, and just kind of went from there. So we just kind of all got together, and first practice, we didn't really sound great. We just kind of had to go slow through all the music and, teaching songs that Carson and I had written, because we were roommates last year. So
some of these are prior songs that you've already written that you're going to just sort of like bring new life into?
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say they're whole songs. They're definitely like more of like half songs, where it's like we'd make 3 or 4 parts, but they just weren't quite there yet. Now they're quite there. Like the songs that we have written are sounding really cool. The old ones, at least. The new stuff we're writing, still a little incomplete, and there's some weird timing stuff on it, but we're working on it, and it's sounding good.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm excited to play. I haven't played. Last time I was in a band, I was in a really bad band my sophomore year of high school called Smoking Television, It was it was like laughable, and I'm so glad no one saved any recordings of it, because like if I did, I'd have to burn them. There was bad recordings.
It's evidence.
Yes, it is evidence. Yeah, but it was a good time. Like for as crappy as we were, I did have fun, and that's really all that's supposed to be at that age. So
this is another record that I'm bringing out today. I like to play this one when I'm doing the dishes sometimes.
is this what's playing right now? What's spinning?
Yeah, and it's like some 60s and 70s covers by Mr. Gerald Wilson and his orchestra. And I think it's even a gatefold. It is.
Whoa.
Oh.
Oh, that's cool art.
Because people like the porn of the form gatefold sleeves. But yeah, we'll get to the King Gizzard here in a little bit.
Oh yeah, have you listened to them at all?
I feel like they have so much that I don't know where to start, and I think that people might have their favorites.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
They're always the same, but they're always different.
Yes,
if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think the album that I brought is a great starting spot. Really shows you kind of what the band is all about. There's that album, and there's another one called In Your Mind Fuzz, which is another great starting spot. Because I know that's a big problem with a lot of people is I've asked people, have you heard of them? They're like, yeah, I've heard of them. And then it's like, I don't know where to start because there's so much stuff. And some of their stuff is so different than their other stuff. Like they did a folk album, kind of. They've done a synth pop album. They've done an industrial metal album. And their home base is like psychedelic rock, and
it's like groove rock. It's always like very bass driven. It seems.
Yes. And they have 2 drummers, and it's very like, I think they really nail what psychedelic music is supposed to be, like at least in 2022 or whatever. But yeah, I'm looking forward to spinning them. So, and then
yeah, we'll take this off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and get an example while it's fresh in our minds.
So,
what do you think? Is this a 33? 33 and 1/3?
I believe it is. Yeah, I think it's 33. It's in the cool vinyl.
Yeah. I don't even know what the process is for that.
I think they just pour a ton of different colored vinyls, like vinyl mixes, into the press and then just kind of swirl it around.
Just see what happens?
Yep.
All right.
See, the only thing that's a little annoying is it's...
Oh yeah, you just gotta set it there.
You just gotta set it right.
And then turn it up. Crank it. Oh, there we go. And that should be all right, I think. Oh, it's like old-timey.
There it goes.
Fade in.
Yep. And so, yes.
Could we get a filter, like the psychedelic, like fading away filter? Impressive gatefold.
Oh yeah, it's so goofy looking too. And then like the band, I don't know, they're such a funny band. So, what's cool about this album, and why this is one of their main albums when people think of this band, is the name of the album is called Nonagon Infinity, right? And so, it's a concept album. I could not tell you what it's about, but I know it's about some sort of like evil presence, and they team up to destroy. It's magic and a lot of weird stuff, right? And you know, this symbol is very important to the album, but each song is a different spot within the story, and as the story progresses and moves to the next song, they all fade into each other until you get to the end of the side and you have to flip it, and then it will do the same thing, and where the last song leaves off, the first song picks up. So So if you're listening to this album on like mobile, you could loop it forever, and it would just keep playing through. So each song goes into each other with the last one going into the first one, and that is like, I don't know. I don't really know any other bands that like will loop it like that. I know a lot of bands will do like the thing where they'll go into each other.
So one song, and then it'll branch off into
Yes.
another that would loop back to that.
Well, so it's only the last song goes in the first song, and
Yeah.
I can play the last track on it. We can listen to the last, and you'll just hear it's like it starts right back where it starts, or it stops right back where the album starts, which I think is really cool. And each song will end at a spot where you can't really tell the next song has started. So it's you could listen to it like it's all one track, and if you were to loop it, it would just keep going on and on and on. And it's really cool. And King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, they're really known for making their songs fade into one another. And so a lot of their albums, not all of them, feel like they're one giant song. And it's really cool. It's such a cool experience to just sit down and listen to and let them take you on like a musical journey. I love it.
Sounds like I would really need a decent speaker setup for this too.
Oh yeah. Or if you got some good headphones or something, yeah, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah. And when did you first start listening to them too?
So, oh man, I think, I'm trying to remember when I know I got into them my sophomore year with a different album called I'm in Your Mind Fuzz, which is, it's similar sounding to this one, maybe a little bit more like happy. This is kind of like grim sounding. That other one's a little bit more happy. And I was just blown away because I've really never heard anything like that, like this sound where it's like in your face and just like everything all at once. And I listened to it a lot, and then once you fall into the rabbit hole of King Gizzard, you're not coming out. Like you just go from one album, right, and then another album that they have is it's a folk music album, right?
A what music?
Folk music,
Oh.
right? So it's kind of like folksy stuff. And then they have a synth pop album.
I had no idea.
There's so much stuff. But this album is a good starting spot because this sounds this is very King Gizzard. You know, this is what people think they're gonna sound like when they're going on tour. They're playing albums off of this song, or they're playing songs off this album.
Yeah, this is what I always sort of like expected. It's like it's very like just grooving and like pretty fast and kind of relentless.
Oh yeah. Guitar tones are like high pitched and in your face with distortion, and then just like a quick drum beat that just doesn't stop. It's awesome.
You know, all this psychedelic rock seems like that's
It's the pitch now.
oh my goodness. Okay, there we go. But all this psychedelic music seems like good background for what we're seeing in space recently.
Yeah.
Have you seen like these pictures of like these nebulous clouds that kind of look like kind of terrifying actually?
They are. I don't know. It's weird. Have you seen those pictures compared to the same things but taken by the Hubble telescope? It's like the same image, but just like you can see like the actual resolution difference, and it's really crazy.
Now, which one had the better resolution? It wasn't Hubble, right?
Yeah, the James Webb one that just came out. And you know, Hubble was like really advanced for its time, if I remember correctly. I remember everyone talking about it. You know, I was young, but yeah, this new telescope, it's just so clear, and I don't know, it's exciting to kind of finally like get out there a little more, you know, and see a little bit more.
Yeah. Like, I mean, public access television's wonderful. Public broadcasting is great. PBS. I've just been watching space shows every night.
Yeah, that's awesome.
There's this one I was checking out. It was called Space Time.
Okay.
You know?
Is
Nice
that
name
with
for a
Neil
show.
deGrasse Tyson? Or am I thinking of something
No.
else? I'm thinking of a different show.
Yeah, but this one's Space Time. It's just like, I don't know, this guy just goes on about black holes. And
That's awesome.
Where the center of the universe is, and he had this really good concept. It's like, how do you point to the center of the universe? It's like, well, our understanding of space-time is different, but you could basically point in any direction,
Right.
and you'll be pointing to the center of the universe.
That's so cool.
And the way he started describing it is like, well, it's basically moving reverse in time. Any arc you go is still going to go back to a reversal in time. Therefore, you can point in any direction,
Right.
and make your way back to the initial point.
That's so hard to wrap your brain around,
Yeah.
isn't it?
So it's like all points are the same point,
Right.
which means it happens simultaneously everywhere.
Right.
So there is no center point. Well, there is, but it's everywhere.
Right. But it's also not there.
Yeah. And I'm not a scientist. Not a scientist. We can put the text there. So don't take my word for it. Take PBS broadcasters' words for it.
You know, I don't know if you've ever been like on YouTube and seen a channel called Kurzgesagt. They make like informative videos about science, and they're pretty big. I think they're from Germany. I think they're funded by the a university there, and I think it's somewhat publicly funded. And they're big in Europe though. And they've done a lot of really informational content about, you know, like space stuff, and it's really digestible, and like they use a lot of really good analogies. So if you're not a scientist, you can understand what they're talking about, and it really gets you thinking. And it you know, it makes me, you know, it's like, wow, maybe I do want to go into science, but no, I don't. I just like to think about it. I don't like to do the math.
Yeah.
You know, the NASA making kind of like didn't they announce that they're going to go back to the moon at some point? I think by 2025 is when they said. And yeah, I don't know. It's cool that like we're starting to pick it back up again.
Well, we never really went the first time.
You don't think so?
I don't know. I was just posing. But no, I mean, I think we probably really went.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably, but there's always that, you know,
I mean,
lingering.
it was the 60s, you know, and I mean, there's arguments for both sides.
I mean, there's always that slight distrust
Right.
of our, you know,
Oh yeah.
of
Oh yeah.
everything that kind of like.
Another thing too is kind of fun to believe that we didn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of fun to be like, well, what if they didn't? And if they didn't go to the moon, then what else are they up to? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we have such a good telescope. We can see the flag we put on there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if we can see that far into space, surely we could see the American flag on the moon somewhere.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, I'd request pictures of that from NASA if we could.
You know, I know when the astronauts did go to the moon. I mean, supposedly go to the moon. They did.
They supposedly.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
We can't take a stance.
Yeah.
It's too political.
Well, it's when they, you know, when they decided that they were going to show us that they were going to the moon.
Right.
For sure.
Right. They set up, because I had to do a paper for this in school, but they set up these pretty much little mirrors, right? These mirror boxes by the moon base. And so if you have a strong enough laser system that's fine-tuned enough, you can tune it to these coordinates on the moon and shoot a laser at it and then receive the laser back. And then you shouldn't be able to do that if there aren't mirrors on there.
I mean, if it seems like it's doable, and
Oh yeah.
you know, we ought to do it for ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
DIY moon project.
Oh yeah, that'd be maybe a future episode. Just
Yeah.
launching lasers at the moon.
I'll start writing the grants.
Yeah. Apply for a grant.
Yeah.
Get more taxpayer money.
Yeah, it's like, sorry, we need to put a laser on the moon and get the signal back.
We need to.
It's not actually that complicated. They set it up in the 60s, so we should be able to do it like right now. There was this blogger for a while.
Okay.
I was following back when blogs were still a thing.
Interesting.
And his name was Wobot. He was like this British writer, and then he turned into a record producer of sorts. He was a DJ too, but he decided he wanted to do a sample album out of nothing but 70s pub rock,
Oh, okay.
and which are records that tend to be skimmed over, and people don't really
Yeah, definitely.
consider them for sampling, which is why he chose to do albums that consisted almost of
Entirely.
nothing but that.
That's pretty cool.
So,
Sampling's so cool.
yeah. He used an MPC, I believe,
Okay.
which I've never used, but I'd like to. It's called Chunks.
It's got a nice groove.
Yeah. It's funny because it's like,
This is cool, yeah.
yeah, it's just like the modern update. It's like it requires sampling. And so how do these
Right.
records live in the future? You turn them into something like this.
Yeah, this is awesome.
And there will be this moment where he takes like all the screams on the record and like
Yeah.
they'll be warped over each other. It's pretty humorous.
That's awesome. It's cool album art too. I like the drawn feeling, especially like on the chunks.
Do you know the writer? It's like Simon Reynolds. He's been a music journalist forever.
I don't.
But it's one of his friends, and he always like supports his friends' books. And
Okay.
So he had a smaller book that was called like the Great Book of Woe or the Big Book of Woe,
Okay, yeah.
and it was mostly just record lists. Of,
Right.
like, you know, so it's like he has them like set up by like what he likes best is like reggae, Afrobeat, krautrock, you know, all that sort of
Right,
stuff. And meanwhile, he'd DJ a lot, and then he got into this period where he was making like, I think he ended up making like 5 or 6 records.
Okay.
And I've just thought about this one randomly the other day, this track especially, and I was just like, man, I wonder if it exists and if I can find it. And it was like $10, you know, on Discogs. So,
That's nice.
So I just picked it up.
It's good.
But I thought it was a pretty fun concept too.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. It's definitely interesting. Like, I don't think I've heard sampled music like this, so it's cool.
Yeah, just sort of stuff that gets left behind.
Yeah, which is cool, you know? It's like, why make new things when you could just reuse old things, right?
Yeah. And I think, I mean, those are two things that are fighting against each other. It's like the want for the new
Yeah.
and, you know, the want to preserve old things. And
Yep.
I think the intersection is in sampling.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
You know? Yeah,
But-
how do you make something that's so old sound so new?
And I mean, and that does a lot for artists too,
Yeah,
who
absolutely.
haven't been seeing a paycheck in a long time.
Right.
Someone like Kanye West comes up and samples some tune that he just finds at random. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
suddenly they're.
That music, yeah, the song that was sampled gets, you know, blows up, you know?
So it does a lot for business in that way.
Yep.
I kind of went nuts like a couple weeks ago, and I got a portable 8-track player,
Okay, nice, yeah.
and it worked
That's awesome.
for a while.
Where'd you get it from? Like thrift store or something, or?
I got one on eBay.
Okay.
And then after that, I went to Miamisburg, and we picked up like 20 or 30 different tapes
That's awesome.
that actually worked. What? Huh? Okay, pretend you're not there.
So,
Yeah, 8-track tapes, so are
Getting
very
good?
peculiar. Well, yeah, actually, I found a Nina Simone
Okay.
tape, and that was really nice.
Yeah, that's cool.
And they actually had a Kraftwerk tape too, but I didn't pick that up. They wanted to sell it for very high, but everything else was like
Right.
$3 for $1.
That's awesome, yeah. I know, I'm pretty sure Omega's got some 8-track stuff.
Yep, I picked up some in Omega
Yep.
too. I got the Letterman which was,
Okay.
you know, they're kind of like effervescent, like the way they sound on the tape anyway. And
Okay.
like they have a lot of covers, and they're all very nice and pleasing.
Yeah.
They're not rockin' covers at all. They're
Right.
just like the most pleasing
That's cool.
of covers. And when you listen to it on an 8-track tape, it sort of wavers, you know?
Yeah.
Kind of like what we talked about.
I like that. Yeah.
With like the Julie London record.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And, you know, and then it got to a point where the songs were blurring into one another.
That's cool. That's really cool.
And then it got to the point where it just wouldn't play.
Oh.
And so a lot of them actually go out pretty quickly.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
know. But there's a really nice documentary you can see on YouTube that's called So Wrong They're Right.
Yeah.
And it's people in the 90s who collected 8 tracks and wrote about their 8 tracks. And
Okay.
just their love of the medium.
That's it's I think that's like that and like cassette are really unique in that I believe music that's written to be released on cassette should really only be listened through a cassette or 8-track player, because a lot of the times the artist will account for the wobble and the pitch distortion and whatnot, and that will add like an effect to it, right? It's like they really know how to play into that sound, which is really cool, and that's definitely something we don't get today with like the really crystal clear digital audio, right? Where it's like there's no character with the output, it's just an output, and there's no distortion or anything. It's just clear. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah. So when your band decides to record to vinyl,
Oh yeah.
you know, do you have an idea of like song arrangement, like how you're gonna put it on a record, or?
You know, I know because we all want to play different music, and so we're not sure. Like we know kind of like how we want, or at least the energy at certain points in the album to sound. We have a couple songs, and we're not really sure where they're gonna fit with each other, or if we even want to put them onto the same album because they're so different. So we might just write an album to be unique, and then have stuff that we only play at shows, and then release that as like its own thing. That's kind of how I would like to do, is kind of keep them separate. Maybe put one or two, like we could take a song and then base all the other stuff for an album around that music.
Yeah. So like a studio dynamic and a live dynamic.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And then play both of them. But
Okay. Well, hey, I think we should end with some of the other record that you played here.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, it's Melvin's.
Yep, the Melvin's Houdini. This is a classic. A lot of metal people really into this album.
Oh, is this a third man release too, huh?
Yep.
That's interesting. Didn't realize they came out on that.
Do you know Kurt Cobain actually helped produce this album?
This one here?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Where is it? Yep. Produced by the Melvins, Kurt Cobain, and Garth Richardson.
No, I had no idea.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I think he actually played a little bit of guitar on it too. There's the... You know,
Yeah.
I was thinking about getting this drawing tattooed on me at some point, because I really like this album.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be a really good tattoo. Yeah, the art on it's super sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if I get a tattoo, I'm gonna get a Space Nebula Man on there.
Should.
High resolution.
Well,
I guess it's time to wrap it up. But till next time, this has been Mindless Idiots, and we've got our records in our hands.